Welcome to the Caravan Show, where we discuss all things caravans. That's right, everything you need to know about caravans, from weight, towing, maintenance, appliances, renovations, buying a caravan, repairs, destinations and reviews. We'll also chat with some Aussie legends, manufacturers, suppliers and of course, people who love caravans. Take it away, Roy.
G'day, it's Roy here from the Caravan Show podcast, and we have with it on the other line right now Mayor Tim Wilson. Now, Tim's the Mayor of the Kentish Shire in Tasmania. Welcome.
Thank you, Roy.
Mate, how long have you been the Mayor in the Kentish Shire in Tasmania?
Not too long, probably coming up to 2 years. Though I've been on the council much longer. I was Deputy Sheriff for quite a while, so that took me about 9 years I was Deputy. So I guess I've had a fairly up close and personal look at the role and decided that it was my time, or at least to put my name forward, and here we are.
Are you a local businessman, or is this all you really do?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, where I am, you can't live on a mayor's allowance, so I have other employment. I work in, it's called Libraries Tasmania. So Libraries Tasmania obviously provide library services all over the state, and I work in Sheffield, and I also work in a coastal town called Ulverston. So they're the places that I do the work when I'm not here, and obviously I've got other things in life as well.
So whereabouts exactly is the Kentish Shire?
So Kentish is central northern Tasmania. They call it the northwest coast, or this area, but we're really not in the northwest, and we're really not on the coast. So think of Devonport, and inland from Devonport, Kentish sits there, and Kentish pretty much runs from the edge of Devonport, and it takes you right up to Cradle Mountain. So quite a large area. We have about 6,000 people in our municipality, and so it's a fairly sparsely populated area. But I could talk for hours, but I'll give you that piece of information for now.
Okay. Well, we're hoping you are going to talk for a long time and tell us lots about it. So are you actually a local boy?
No, I actually grew up in inland New South Wales. I'm from Young, and I was born in Cowra in New South Wales. So the link to Tasmania is through my wife, who's from this area. So we've been here as a couple since about 95 or end of 94. So Kentish has been very good to us. The town of Sheffield's been good, and we've got 8 kids. So we've been a busy crew. We've got 4 at home at the moment and 4 out, and Tassie's been a very safe and just a nice place to bring our kids up.
Obviously not a lot of television in your area.
I far prefer Helen's attention than the TV.
Good on you. I'm sure she likes that too. So, Tim, tell us a little bit more about the size of the Shire and what it takes in. Your actual land mass is around what, 5,000 kilometres or something, 5,000 square kilometres or something like that?
No, I'd be lying to know that statistic. But Kentish takes in, it's got some important landmarks in it. So I've mentioned Cradle Mountain is in Kentish, which is a very big draw card for most visitors to the state. Want to go and see Cradle because it's just stunning. We have Lake Barrington is here. It's a international rowing course, so the Australian rowers come here on a regular basis and train in our area. That's quite near to Sheffield. And Mount Roland is another stunning mountain which really sits in the backdrop of much of Kentish. So there's plenty of places in Kentish. So that's the natural landmarks. But in regard to the people and the towns, we have 3 main towns. Sheffield is the largest town. It's about 1,500 people, something like that, and it's known for its murals. It's called the town of murals. We have Railton. Railton has a population of around about 1,000 people, and it has had more of an industrial background with Cement Australia. It's based there, and they have topiaries, and there's mountain bike trails coming right through Kentish at the moment, and Railton is the first place to see those mountain bike trails open. And the third township, and it's really it's a village or a hamlet, you would call it, that is Wilmot, and Wilmot is up in the hill country. It's on the way to Cradle Mountain. On the original road to Cradle has strong links to the highlands of Tasmania, and it's a very small community. There's probably only 600 people right through the whole area. So they're the main townships, but most people in our municipality don't live in the towns. They live in, like me, they live on small acreages, and they live away from the township. So it's a very dispersed population. We have over 100 bridges in our municipality, so we're very much kept busy because we have many rivers, and the mountains create those rivers, so we don't complain because it's. I guess every mayor is probably biased, but I would think Kentish to be the most beautiful municipality in Tassie, based off certainly with Cradle and Lake Barrington and Mount Roland, would put us right up there, I think. So, yeah, there's a bit of background for you.
So you obviously get snow up on them there mountains.
We do, yes. Where we live, Mount Roland, really, when you look out the kitchen window, it doesn't fit. We're fairly close to the mountain, and certainly we see snow on Roland. We don't see it much in our townships, but as you head up towards Cradle, that's where you start seeing the snow through the season. So beautiful winter wonderland. It's actually interesting, Roy. We had friends he was the ranger at Cradle Mountain many years ago, and we went there to have Christmas with them. And my daughter woke me up and said, "Daddy, snow." And I thought, oh, go back to sleep. But she was right, got me out of bed, and we had a white Christmas. So you don't have too many white Christmases in Australia, but you can get them up at Cradle. Yeah.
Wow, that is impressive. So those nice fresh snowfields are producing the water that's coming down through those riverways, and I assume there'd be some nice fish to catch in there too.
Yeah, there is. There's fly fishing through this area. My son is quite a keen fisherman. Yes, and we have some large rivers that come through. The Mersey River comes through Kentish and works its way along to the coast. So yes, very, very cool fly fishing. There's some stronger municipalities for fly fishing, no doubt about that. But there's certainly plenty of fishing going on in this area as well.
So what makes up the majority of your economy and infrastructure there?
It's a mixed bag, and we have a fairly large egg in the basket, which is tourism. But for a lot of places like us or right around the world, they're suffering. That egg's got a bit of a crack at it at the moment because of the lack of interstate and overseas tourists coming here. So tourism is certainly an important part of our municipality. I mentioned Cement Australia, so that's the industrial side of things, and that powers on and is an important part of the Railton township. And we have our farming here. We have dairy and cattle and sheep through this area, so they have fared generally quite well through the COVID situation. So they are probably the areas that really hold Kentish together. And we have an irrigation scheme which is going to be coming this way called the Don Irrigation Scheme, which is going to open up new crops or growing crops for longer periods of time, and that will be coming through a part of Kentish fairly soon. So yes, it's not all tourism by any stretch, but the townships themselves certainly have relied on the tourism dollar. And look, Roy, like everybody else you'd be talking to, it's a difficult time for them at the moment. So we're really keen to see other Tasmanians make a trip into our area as well. I think Cradle Mountain is something that everyone should see, and certainly coming through our towns, you'll find your way to Cradle.
Yeah, I mean we're promoting this very heavily. Go visit your own backyard. So people in Tasmania, your area doesn't need for everything to open up to start the economy flowing again. You just need your local that normally travelling interstate and far away from it to actually start travelling within their own backyard and looking at what you've got to offer, because there'll be a lot of people in Tasmania that haven't been to your area or haven't been there for a long time or don't spend enough time when they are there. So with caravanners, who is my major audience, what sort of provisions have you got? How many caravan parks would you have there, for example?
So the caravan parks that we have here, we have one at Cradle Mountain. There's a caravan park there. And there's one at Gowrie Park. Gowrie Park's a really interesting little township. Not even really a town anymore, but it was. It's under Mount Roland, so there's a caravan park in that area. And Gowrie Park was set up the 50s and the 60s, when Hydro came and they built all these impressive dams through Tasmania, well, they built them in the Gowrie Park area. So it had more people than Sheffield, that area, in its heyday. So Gowrie Park's the place where there's a second caravan park. So when you go there now or look at it on Google Earth, you can still see all the old fishbone layout of streets in that area. So it's quite a fascinating little area. Hydro still have a presence there, and we have a hope that pumped hydro will find its way into Kentish in the next year or two as well. So they're the two parks, one up at Cradle and one down at Gowrie Park, that provide dedicated caravan parks. Yeah.
What about free camping and farm stays?
Hasn't been easy for us as a council. We've had a few complaints about free camping, so we've just done our best to keep some open. So we've got one called Kentish Park. Kentish Park is down at Lake Barrington on the Sheffield side, and on the other side of Lake Barrington there's another free camping spot in Wilmot. You can travel down from there, and right in the middle of Railton there is also a free camping spot there. Now, in regard to farm stays, there's a couple of campsites, but to be honest, mate, you'd have to look on their site to know what they are. I did ask our staff today and I didn't hear back, but I think we've got 2 or 3 campsites in the area as well.
So we've got people now coming to area. Once they get there, what are they going to do? What attractions have we got for them?
Yeah, the attractions in our area, well, as I say, if they come into Sheffield, the attractions will be just the township itself, especially the main street. In the we've got the coffee shops. We've got quirky businesses in town, some unusual characters. We even have a fella called Batman that has a shop in Sheffield. So if you come through Sheffield, just ask somebody where Batman is, and it's fair to say once you meet Batman, you won't forget him. He's a pretty interesting fella. So Sheffield will provide you with an interesting history of our area that is shown through the murals in our town. And there is a mural tour you can do, an audio tour, or wander at your own pace through the township. Stunning views of Mount Roland from the township as well. So we're doing a lot of streetscape work in Sheffield. There'll be a bit more pain to get some gain in Sheffield soon. We'll be just beautifying more of our main street, but it looks 100%, compared to 10 years ago. It's just come up quite beautiful.
Is there any kind of Indigenous population there?
I would think it'd be a very small percentage in the Kentish municipality. There's certainly Aboriginal artefacts in our area, and so they are there. And you certainly have some people with an Indigenous ancestry, or a line through there, but not a big presence, or at least made known presence in the Kentish area. There are ochre mines in this area, which show some of the history of that. But so that's probably Sheffield. Yes, the murals and the mountain and just the characters and the shops. Railton is a different town again. There's topiaries. Railton decided they wanted some tourism interest in their town as well. So there's many topiaries in the town depicting different things in the township. For those who have a bit of energy, have a bike, they should check out some of our mountain bike trails. We actually have now a mountain bike trail that connects Railton through to Latrobe. And so it's about a 12 or 13 kilometre ride. For those with an e-bike who aren't that fit, they'll do it with their eyes, or maybe not with their eyes closed, but they'll do it pretty easily. So that's another nice attraction there is the mountain bikes. We're actually building tracks at the moment. It may not be some of your audience, or it may, I don't really know, but at the moment we are building the last stage. It's called Wild Mersey. Wild Mersey takes you on mountain bike trails between Latrobe, Railton and Sheffield. It'll end up being about 100 kilometres of trails, and they're actually in the hills, their hills behind Sheffield at the moment, building the last 60 kilometres of trail. So we'll have another stage open at Christmas. Final stage will be open in, I reckon, June next year. So absolutely stunning backdrop in this area. So there's some of the attractions there. And certainly Wilmot, for those interested in the Highland side of things, they have a packed museum with knowledgeable staff in the area. So there's also a supermarket, petrol station, all in one in the township of Wilmot, and fuel. So you'll be able to stock up there. And the original site of the first Coles supermarket or Coles shop is in Wilmot. Unfortunately, the store burnt down some 5 years ago, but the historical site is still there, and information about that is there. So we know what Coles has gone on to since then. So there are a few of the things for you to do. But short walks, stacks the short walks in our area. We play to our strengths, and our strengths are the natural beauty. And if you were to stay out at Gowrie Park, at the Caravan Park, there are walks nearby at an area called O'Neill's Creek, and just beautiful short walks. You're not going to get covered in leeches or or have a horrible experience. They're just short, beautiful walks. So no, there's no shortage of outdoor things to do in Kentish. So Tassie gets a bad rap for weather, but for me, it's nowhere near as cold as where I'm from. Like I mentioned, Young, Cowra, Canberra, much colder places than here by a stretch. It's just that Tassie is cooler for longer. And I think that plays well in summer, though, because you just don't, a lot of people move to Tassie just to get away, I think, from the heat. They tell me that, especially from WA and places. So you'll just get mild summers usually, and the winters, as I say, the inland New South Wales, my experience has been it's much colder than here.
We're finding more and more of our listeners, which have been predominantly grey nomads in the past, we're seeing more and more families, young couples taking the kids, throwing them in a caravan, homeschooling, which is now something that's becoming pretty much commonplace with COVID-19. They're doing their homeschooling, they're travelling all around the country. If they come to the Kentish Shire, what sort of things do you have for the kids there?
Yeah, for the kids in our municipality, well, there's lots of spots if they do bring their bikes. They certainly have a chance to be riding in our municipality. Our townships have parks. All of them have parks with facilities there for families to have barbecues in the area, skateboard rinks in 2 of our towns, a BMX track in another one of the townships. So I think there's plenty of active things for them to do. And look, if they come to Tassie, they should join our libraries while they're here and use those, because Tassie has an amazing library system, and that is my other job. But in Tassie, look, as I say, being from inland New South Wales, if I wanted to borrow a book, the council would run the library and I'd get the book from that place and I'd return it to that place. In Tassie, you can borrow from one location and you can drop it off at another location. You can place a hold on a book to pick it up at Bicheno and you can drop it off at St Helens. So that's another beautiful service for families, especially if they're homeschooling, to use some of our resources as they travel around. Interestingly, Roy, we actually homeschool ourselves, even though we don't wander around. So we've homeschooled for 25 years. So for us, it's a fairly normal thing. But I can see why families do it as they travel around, and certainly COVID has pushed some families to have a go at it. So I think that they will probably see a few more Aussies taking up homeschooling and thinking it's not actually quite as daunting as I thought. So anyway, each to their own on that one. I've got kids in school and kids at home. But so there's some of the things that it would provide well for children. Railton is really good if we have a thing called a pump track for the kids. A pump track is, you might call it like a BMX track, but it's sealed, and it's actually you pump your bike, not actually pump the tyres up. As you go down, you sort of push down and you pull up and you use gravity to move around the track. So we've only built that, and we think it's still the biggest one in Tasmania. Only been going for less than 12 months. So that is an absolute magnet for kids with bikes. So that's in Railton, and wonderful thing.
I'm loving your library idea. I think that's absolutely awesome. I guess you're not collecting too much money in late fees on the basis of being able to return it in just about anywhere. So I think that's a pretty marvellous thing. The weather, and we've harped on this a little bit, but is there a particularly good time and a particularly bad time of the year for people to come into your area?
Yeah, so the good and bad is in your perspective, isn't it? To a certain degree. Certainly this quarter we're in now, we just had to hit the winter equinox. So from here through till, September, so over that 3-month period, that is the time where it'll be wetter and colder. So we're in that period now. This year's been exceptionally not too many frosts and things, but if you don't like the wet and the cold, you're not coming right now. For those who, the summer months, what we see is a real jump just after Christmas through till about Easter, and Easter does vary in the date, but that's the period where we see peak numbers of people coming through here. Look, I have my personal favourites. I guess I love the autumn. The autumn here is incredibly clear air. It just feels different. And so in autumn, we will get many still days where the temperature is still fine, as in it isn't cold. That is my favourite time of the year. But hey, look, some people love winter and they just want to sit up at Cradle or somewhere, as long as you've got a hot chocolate going, some marshmallows and some warmth, who cares? So we have a distinct 4-season year in Tassie, which I love. So yeah, horses for courses on that. But yes, if you want to stay away from the general tourism run, well, you would be staying away from us from after Christmas through to Easter, and choosing some other time. But yeah, we do get those distinct 4 seasons, which is nice. So
That,
that's how it
that
sits.
probably helps lead me into the next question, because we asked everyone the same question. Tim, put you on the spot a little bit. And we say, look, tell us some local secrets, things that you'll only find out from the locals. You're not going to find from Googling. And you probably even answered some of that with your last statement, that just arrive in a certain time of the year, which isn't something you're going to find from Google. There might be something more exciting to do, sitting around an open fire or something. I don't know. Give us some ideas of local secrets, will you?
Some local secrets. Yeah, that's one of the first local secrets is to make sure that when you get into town, you find a local, and you start asking them questions about what's important to them, because Google is wonderful, but it sort of hasn't got the depth of local knowledge. I think for locals, you would find that, oh gee,
Someone like Batman, maybe.
yeah.
And actually, you can tell us more about how he got the name Batman.
Oh, look, I don't even know. But this guy, he wears a belt. He has a shop in Sheffield. It's called the Emporium. So I'll just tell you a little bit about Batman. It's going to be impossible for you to almost miss him. Some days he gets out with a bugle and he makes the most excruciating noise in the main streets that a human being can put up with. So I'm not sure if he's trying to, well, I don't know what he's trying to do, but it is quite memorable. So Batman is one of those people you should probably just pop in and say hello to. So his Emporium has many secondhand items, through from books that are worth $1 through to Beatles albums that are more rare now. He's just an absolute mix of different things. And his name is Mark Beach Ross, and Mark is, I don't know, must be around 60, dreadlocks. He's a wonderful guy. He's one of those ambassadors for the town who is passionately Tasmanian, passionately wanting people to spend money in the local area, and just absolutely loves living in this space. So, yeah, look, for your locals, I think we're pretty quintessential Tasmanians in regard to where we live. Very proud of our area, proud of the environment in which it is. And we've still got that lifestyle, which I love. So here's the lifestyle for me. The lifestyle is that I don't spend much time in transit. And if I have to travel anywhere, it's actually quite beautiful and not stressful. I'm driving through beautiful parts of Tasmania to go over to Ulverston. So we value those sorts of things here in Tassie. I think lifestyle is such an important part of for most Tasmanians, and there isn't much of a sense of keeping up with the neighbours here. There isn't much of a comparison about who earns what and what they drive. It's just not an important part of the Tassie mindset. And I do notice that when I head back interstate and into the cities specifically, it's quite a different way of looking at the world. Our income here will be lower than many parts of the nation, but some of our costs are quite a lot lower. Housing prices are generally quite a lot lower, but we've had some good years, Roy. We've had some good years in regard to economic growth. In the last 2 or 3 years, Tasmania's had one of the strongest growing economies. We've all had the boot laid into us over the last 6 months, and nobody's escaped that. But Tassie, when I arrived, it was in the doldrums, mid-90s. It was just very high unemployment, quite a pessimistic view of the world. We had forestry wars, and it was just a really divided, unhappy place, and it was quite difficult for me to find employment here at that time. But Tassie has seen a renaissance in the last few years, so we're seeing quite a few people moving here, probably for lifestyle, get away from the heat, and the house prices are still very reasonable as compared to some spots interstate. So yeah.
Tell us about your local produce. So do they grow a lot of food, or produce wines or beers or gins or anything like that?
Yeah, yes, we do. There is, I can tell you one. There's a microbrewery down in Railton called Seven Sheds. So it's worth a visit. It's a very casual place to go. They make their their beers. Kentish Ale is one. Another one's called a Willy Warmer. Don't ask me about that one. Not real sure what that means. But so they have these quirky names to their beers. But it's just an example of a little brewery here in Railton that just has its locally crafted beers. We have a place called Truffle Door. They grow truffles. It's in a little town called Lower Barrington. There's a handful of people in the area just living close in that little community there. There's another spot of interest. We do have a few wineries. We're not known for wineries here, though there are a few in our area. But we have the crops. You've got your traditional colder climate crops growing through here. And we've got real farmers in the area who are producing for their livelihood as well. So it is a mixed bag. Our visitor centre in Sheffield is having an upgrade, or it's coming, and a part of that what we're looking forward to is locals having the ability to share their produce in the visitor information centre, do a tasting week. So different businesses each week being able to.
Well, I've had some unusual ones. I've had olives and things like that, but the first ones with truffles. So I don't know of anywhere else that they grow them, or if there is, no one's telling me about it. So places for people to go and eat. You've obviously got some nice restaurants and some exotic food as well that they can choose from.
Yeah, we have a mixture of foods. We have a really well-reviewed Chinese restaurant in Sheffield. I don't know if it's won awards, but it's certainly had its name from top reviewers as a place to visit. So that is certainly, if you're after some Chinese food, you're going to get some absolutely impressive food there. They grow the meat on their Wagyu meat. They grow that on their property. They live close to me. They grow some of their meat there, which runs through the restaurant. So it is quite a local product there in town. Sheffield has an Italian restaurant in town, so pasta made on site there, just long streams of fettuccine and things sitting there in town, and it's a quite a popular place in the middle of Sheffield. We have our traditional takeaway businesses. We have a bakery in the middle of town, and an interesting shop in Sheffield is called Fudge and Good Coffee. So you go to Fudge and Good Coffee, and beautiful fudge ranges that they make, and just a really well-made coffee. So it's a popular place in Sheffield. And Railton has a bakery, which we popped into this morning, but for some reason they weren't open. We're going to sit down and have a coffee and have a talk. So there is food in Railton as well. It's a well-established spot. I heard there's a Vietnamese restaurant coming, or at least Vietnamese food coming to Railton as well. And Wilmot, while it is a very small town, I mentioned there is takeaway food there and others as well. So some spots there for you to have in our town. Shops are open, you'll get something to eat every day of the week.
So obviously your history is very multicultural.
There is. Yeah, I guess as you think about those foods, you will be seeing those things. There is one shop I could bring up as well in Sheffield. It's called Slater's Country Store. And Slater's Country Store has been open for, I think, about 115 years, something like that. So it's an old established country store with a bit of everything, men's, ladies, children's clothes. Through the store you walk in and it's still got the old rocking horse where you put the coin in and the kids have a ride. Even a little flying fox where they move some of the items from the front to the back of the store. So it's on the crossroads in the middle of Sheffield. So it is a store. It's an experience, really. There's products you can buy, quality products in there, but it's just the experience. When you walk in the shop, you feel like you felt when you went into a shop with your grandparents when you were a kid. That country store, variety store. So there's other ones I could mention, but that's certainly one that is. It's almost a tourist attraction as well, as a shop in the township. Yeah.
We know it's tough right now, and I assume that your area's suffered quite badly with this COVID-19, as we discussed before. But once things get more back to normal, travelling to Tasmania, you've got obviously aeroplanes coming in, but the actual Tasman trip on the ferry, Do you know much about that ferry trip?
Well, I guess I've been on it, numerous times myself. So yes, it's a trip that we have 2 boats running at the moment. Good news is, Roy, that we are having 2 more boats built at the moment. Denmark, Finland, somewhere up there. There's a couple of boats that are being built, and these boats are both larger vessels than the 2 that are in service now. The 2 that are in service now had a refurb about 5 years ago, and they certainly are a step up. I was on the boat with my family, so look, we left Devonport and went across to Melbourne. We left, 6 at night and got in at 7 in the morning or something like that, and vice versa. So, those boats are running on a regular basis. So as for now, obviously numbers are all very low, but I think they're taking bookings from September. But we really are in the hands of the health authorities and our Premier in regard to that. But there's all you can eat on the boats and different eating experiences there. And we took our vehicle over, which makes for a cheaper trip to be able to move around. Now, in regard to the plains and area, we've got an airport at Devonport, which doesn't bring in the jets; it just brings in the smaller planes. Burnie or Wynyard is the area where we have more planes coming in, but the majority are coming in through Launceston is how it is. But if you take the boat and you come into Devonport, well, Sheffield's only about half an hour from there, and it's a pretty popular way for people to do things. Many come in and they come in that way, and then they first stop probably is Sheffield. They look at the murals and have some morning tea and those things, and then they keep moving their way up to Cradle. And we have people go to Railton and Wilmot, but they just do it in different ways. So I think Sheffield tends to be a first or almost last stop for a lot of people. So it's a nice welcome. I'm always aware of our tourists, and it's easy to spot a tourist. I'm sure I'm easy to spot when I travel. I've often got a little map and looking around, and I sometimes go up and just say g'day and ask them, because that's that ask a local thing. I've got the knowledge and of the places that they might want to wander off and see something a little bit different. So, no, the boats are a lifeblood for us, and we look forward to our municipality benefiting from bigger boats when they do come online. There's been a bit of a hold up with them, so I'm not sure their final date of coming, but we obviously need to see the international market open up. Tassie's a place where I think a lot of Aussies at least want to go to once. And I was lucky enough to come here with my parents in '86. A very different Tasmania when I moved here, in the mid-90s. So it's a place where a lot of Aussies at least want to go to once. And it's a really exciting thing. When you live on the mainland and you come on the boat and, you're off the mainland, and it's not, it's a special thing. And then you arrive and, wow, you're on this big island. So I remember that excitement. So I don't like to forget those things. So a lot of excited people coming into Sheffield when they get off the boat.
We like to know a lot about history. Do you have museums? Is there much history in the area?
Well, it was settled. Kentish was settled in the mid 1800s, and we have a long Indigenous history here that spans back thousands of years. As we know, the Aboriginal people came down from well, it was all one unit. Then they came to Tassie and they got cut off, and so they just developed their distinctive ways here when the waters rose, and they were cut off from the mainland. So yes, we have that long history, and still many artefacts and things being found in Tasmania from that past. Yeah, look, now in our area, we haven't got the strong. There certainly were convicts in our area who helped to build the roads through here, but most people came and started settling here from probably 1860s onwards through the Kentish area. An interesting story for you is Gustav Weindorfer and his wife Kate. Gustav was the man who worked his way through into Cradle Mountain and named that area, and just had a vision. He came from German stock, German stock, I think, and he said this should be a national park for all people. He was that impressed by it, and he floated that idea, and history shows us that had happened. So he and Kate used to be at Cradle and invite people to come up, and he was our first tourism operator up in that spot. And he had a difficult life, being of German extract or Austrian. I'm sorry, I can't remember now. I should know that. He was accused of things through World War One, that he was a spy and he was sitting up there and beeping back messages to the Germans. But it was just stories. He and his wife, great story. I mentioned Mount Roland here is just behind Sheffield. He and his wife had their honeymoon up there. I think they had 3 or 4 weeks up on Mount Roland is where they had their honeymoon, and they wrote letters to the local newspaper. They wrote under a different name. They acted like they were an Irish trapper. And there's these 3 letters they wrote to our newspaper here is called The Advocate. And just really hilarious letters. So they bring a real wealth of history and makes it really interesting. I'm quite inspired by them, actually, what they've done, because, Cradle Mountain is a very important part of our municipality, and certainly in dollar terms it is, but just the natural beauty. So he and his wife Kate, they were the ones who pushed to see it opened up as a national park, and so I've got a lot of time and respect for people who did it very, very hard. So so there's history everywhere, isn't there? Every municipality's got their own stories, but ours is probably linked quite strongly to the natural environment.
Interesting you talk about honeymoons and stuff, because I have Matt sitting opposite me right now, and at this moment in time, had it not been for COVID-19, he'd be right where you are, actually having his honeymoon. So he's had to have it put off because of the COVID-19, and he's sitting here with tears welling up in his eyes, I think, because of what should have been and what could have been, and actually he's missing it already. So yeah, that's a bit sad, a bit of a sad story. But okay, so there's plenty of history and some interesting stories from people like that, and of course there's always that type of thing in areas where someone's had to sort of start it off. But I'd like to talk to you about another thing here, because of that little bit of isolation from the mainland, you've also had some diversity in your flora and fauna. And I mean, we all know about Tasmanian tigers and Tasmanian devils, but there's got to be others that we probably don't know about. Is there anything you can share with us on that, Tim?
Gee, I'm not really a Harry Butler sort of guy, but remember old Harry Butler? He'd lift up a rock and there'd always be something under it, no matter what he did.
It was amazing, that, wasn't it?
I don't know how he managed to be so successful every time. I think a few of them still had the price tag on them when he lifted them up. But we've got our distinct animals here, and you're right. We do see devils in our area here. Unfortunately, some of them have been hit. We get lots of roadkill in Tassie, and I don't know what you think about this, but look, no one likes it. And I don't like it. And our council staff, when they see roadkill, they'll try and pull it off, because we want to keep the devils from getting on the road to be eating those things. But you get roadkill because there's animals there. I guess I'd be more worried if there was never any roadkill.
Yep.
If you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. So, and there are other animals that actually need that to survive as well. So lest we forget the circle of life,
Yeah, that's right. So, if there was no roadkill in Tasmania, I'd be really worried about that, because it means there's nothing out there anymore. But we get the little paddy melons, and they are, we see them around Cradle.
Sorry, paddy melons. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, they're a little bouncy furry thing. It looks like a miniature kangaroo that's been, put in a dryer. They're very, very small. Up in Cradle, you get here. Warning for your visitors to Cradle, or up in Highlands, you've got currawongs up there that you can have a sandwich in your hand. Don't turn the wrong way, because it may not be there again. I mean, these things have got no sense of propriety at all. So you've got them there. And by the way, they're up at Cradle. There is actually a devil park up there too. So for those who want to see devils up close and personal, they're called devils for a reason. They've got the most hideous noise to them at night time. So you can understand how they got their name early on. So yeah. So in our area, we've certainly got the normal wildlife that we would see, and then possums, wallabies. There are some kangaroos in our area. Some people say, "Oh, Tassie doesn't have any kangaroos," but The forester, look, then they're not like the big roos that you see in outback New South Wales or Queensland by any stretch, and I'm glad about that. But in our area, I'm seeing an increase in the amount of roos that are moving into this area. Magpies are back. Weird. I grew up with magpies in New South Wales. The magpies in Tassie have a different characteristic. They are just not angry birds. They are more subdued. I don't know what the go is with them, but I remember walking home from school in Young in New South Wales, and these maggies, I literally could not get past them. They were dive bombing me, and this is the truth. 4 nuns in a Mercedes came and picked me up and took me home. That was my first religious experience. Yeah. So, but down here, no, they just stare at you. Obviously they breed, or there wouldn't be any. But it
couldn't have been personal, could it? I mean, clearly they weren't picking on you for saying what that was wrong with you. Never mind.
No. Well, in the old days, the police would come and sort them out. And what I mean by sort them out is they'd shoot them out of a tree. But not anymore. But certainly, so yeah. When you see your maggies here, don't go into a cold sweat over them. Maybe they'll change their tune over the years, but they've certainly moved back into our area here. Yeah, we've got lovely birds that come through here. We've got the black cockatoos that come through Kentish, and you see them we have lots of forestry in our area, many pine plantations, and you just hear them. They're just up in the trees chewing away on the cones, but these are really large birds. So think of your white cocky, and these things are a third larger than your white cockatoos, and it's a very distinct noise. We certainly get a lot of white cockies. They come through and raid all our walnuts and goodness knows what. But the black cockies, and then they've got a yellow crest as well. It's a little bit different location. So anyway, just talking about those things there, you'll see the distinct animals in Tassie, and I guess that isolation has created that. The water's good and bad for Tassie. It's Tassie we haven't had a live case that we know of COVID for over 50 days. I think we're sitting at about 57 days or something like that at the moment. So we had a bad start. But at the moment, you can't say we're at the end, but at this stage, we're travelling better than any other state in regard to the amount of days without a known case. So that all acts in our favour. It does make life harder for local people to travel, or at least more expensive to go interstate. But we've still got residents who've never been out of the state, and that's just how it is. That's an amazing thing for some people to think about. But some people travel, and they travel all their life, and they're always restless. And some people live in the same area all their life, and they're quite peaceful. So,
that sort of brings us back, doesn't it, to the original point here of travelling. We don't need to wait for all the states to open up. If you live in Tasmania right now, and you can travel around Australia right now, around Tasmania right now, they should be coming into your shire, having a look at what you've got to offer there, spending some bucks, looking after the local stuff. We're not looking for donations. We're not looking for freebies. But now's a great time to go spend your local dollar in your local towns, and same language, same food, maybe with some diversity, because not every town's got a Batman that you can go and see, and not every place is farming truffles. But, go and have a look on your own doorstep. Go and investigate it, because so many of us don't do that. Now is the perfect time, absolutely the best possible time to go and start, touring your own backyard. So, anyone that's out there listening to this, please go and start touring your backyard. And when things are open up, they want the interstaters there. We want you to travel over on those ferries, 2 now, 4 soon. The airplanes will be up and running again, and they're going to need your business too. If we all club together, we can actually turn this into a great learning experience, and we can turn it into something that's actually going to be a good way moving forward, isn't it?
I reckon there's some bargains to be had, Roy, at the moment too. There'll be some bargains to be had for you to get out and stay. And we've only, I mentioned I've got 8 kids. Well, you sort of forget which child you took where after a while. But the children at home, none of them had been to Strawn. So Strawn's on the west coast, a really a beautiful part of Tassie, convict history. So we all went down to Strawn as a family about 2 or 3 months ago and had a wow of a time. I thought, we've got to come back, and we've got to go on the boat and go down the Gordon River, and then we're heading to the east coast. So we're doing more of it. You just get in a rut sometimes, don't you? You just get in a rut.
Yeah, we And look, the other thing, Tim, and you sort of harped on us a little bit when you first started talking about, how it's changed in your time. The last time I went to a local zoo, for example, is probably nearly 10 years ago. And it's not that far from me. But in 10 years, it's changed dramatically. So my experience then compared to what my experience will be when I go the next time has dramatically changed. So there are people in Tasmania that have been to your area that, have memories of it, but actually it's changed since then. You should go and have another look, just because you haven't done it for a while and things are constantly changing. Yeah, they need to get out and redo things, and particularly when we start to get older, we forget that these 10 years turn into 20, turn into 30, and you suddenly say, well, I really haven't done that for a while, and maybe now's a chance to redo it.
I know the Tasmania I visited in the late 1980s or mid to late 80s is a very different Tasmania to what it is now. Tasmania is a much more confident state, and it's a more prosperous state. Taking into account the last 6 months, but yeah, so it is a different place. So if you haven't been here in a decade or two, don't assume that it's the same Tassie you're going to see again. So no, it's a wonderful place to live. I think we all probably think where we live is wonderful. Yeah, but for us, it's been a wonderful state to us as a family, and great opportunities. I never would have dreamed that, an interstater like myself would be the mayor of such a beautiful area. So there's opportunities in small places often that you don't have to fight for. And
I'm sure they're glad to have you as their mayor, Tim. Look, mate, you have been absolutely awesome. You've spent plenty of time with us today, and I know time is always precious. You've supplied us with a lot of information, and certainly making it sound like, it's got to be on your bucket list of things to do once these borders open up. We want to get there. I haven't been to Tasmania for a long time, and it's now back on my list of things that I really got to do, because I've never visited Cradle Mountain. I've never seen the things. I've never had the photographs, never done all the things that we've talked about today. I really need to go and do it myself, and I think a lot of my listeners do as well. So again, Tim, thank you very, very much for your time today.
Yeah, wonderful. Good on you, Roy. I appreciate the opportunity.
Cheers, Tim. Bye for now.